All right, what's going on, everybody? John McKechnie here for another RotoWire Best Ball live stream. Thanks for hanging out with me. Love doing these on Wednesday nights. So, uh, got a lot to get to this evening. So, if you're new to hanging out on these streams, basically, I'm gonna talk a little bit about what I'm working on, best ball content wise at RotoWire. About my current article that we're working up. And then in about 10 minutes or so, if you want to skip ahead to the action, we'll be doing a live bet like best ball draft. We're going to do an underdog one. We're going to do the big board, probably our last shot at the big board. It looks like it's about 98% filled right now. So this will be our last one of the big board. On these streams, we'll switch to a different contest for next week. But why don't we get rolling? All right. So again, I'm back again with the fancy weird chart. And last week we were just kind of talking about like ADP shapes for every single team that's out there. Like, okay, here we got the Ravens. Like we know that Derrick Henry goes first. You got a quarterback, the Lamar Jackson, that goes just outside the top 50. You got Zay Flowers as an early pick, and then really like a steep drop off. But at kind of looking at this chart for a long time and looking at the columns specifically, I think we kind of noticed something pretty interesting, and that is just these subcategories, like a wide receiver one. Who are the cheapest ones? So I want to talk about that a little bit tonight and try to like figure out if that's like a worthwhile investment or not. And then we'll look at some wide receiver twos as well, maybe a little bit into the running backs before we get started on the draft. But starting things out, it's like, okay, what constitutes a cheap wide receiver one that's actually worth drafting, right? Because you can say like, well, he's a late pick because I don't trust that offense, or I don't think that he's going to be the wide receiver one. And I think in Cleveland's case, we've got Jerry Jeudy. And Judy's really interesting to me because he's still age-wise, like pretty much in his prime. He's going to be 27 later this month. And you look at that Cleveland depth chart, and like obviously it's kind of like the Browns a little bit, where you've got Harold Fannin as like the main target, and I think that is obviously going to be the case there in Cleveland this year. Oh, what's up, Jamie? Good to have you in here. Jamie always joins on the Thursday streams with Mario. Good to have you in here. Back to the point with Jeudy. You look at the rest of that depth chart, and we'll get to like the draft potential outcomes here in a second, but it's like Isaiah Bond, who doesn't get drafted, or Cedric Tillman, who also rarely gets drafted in these 20-round best balls. So it feels like even if it's a little bit ugly, you have a lot of access, I think, to a pretty healthy target share in the case of Jeudy. Like I think even if like things drop off a little bit in terms of his role, like they bring in some added competition through the draft, I still think you get 100 targets out of Jerry Jeudy. And I think that's something that you're not really going to see much elsewhere at that stage of the draft. I mean, we're talking about like the 13th, 14th round is where, Judy's going, just outside the top 150. So no one's excited about what Jerry Jeudy did last year. And I think there's, a decent reason for concern that maybe he doesn't bounce back, right? Because he had, I talked about him a little bit more. The advanced stats were pretty rough for Jerry Jeudy last year. He ranked, and this is just among receivers with at least 100 targets last year, he was last in targets per route run and yards per route run. So, and like if you zoomed it out over the last like 3 seasons, like only Elijah Moore in 24 and 23 had like similar just kind of empty usage. So it was tough. Like the 4th lowest targets per route run percentage since 2023 among receivers with at least 100 targets, and the 2nd worst yards per route run figure in that sample. So not great. So there's obviously a reason why Jerry Jeudy is going this late, but I think he's one of those guys that you can just kind of hold your nose and say, I want the opportunity. I want the volume. Volume is ultimately king in fantasy football. And if you can even talk yourself into a little bit the idea of what if Cleveland's offense is even a little bit better this coming year? Like, what if Deshaun Watson somehow is able to be a top 20-ish quarterback? Or what if Shadur Sanders is better in year two and the Todd Monken system actually helps, get him going a little bit more. So you do kind of have to play the what if game when it comes to Judy, but I think we have a pretty good chance here at least enough opportunities for Judy to pay off. And you look at that versus say like, you know, Isaac Tesla on the Lions, who's like a popular pick who goes about a round and a half later. Like, I'd probably just rather have the wide receiver one on a bad team than the wide receiver three on a team like the Lions, where Tesla might ultimately be like the number five target in that offense when you also bake in guys like Sam Laporta and Jameer Gibbs in that offense, or even like I like Kayshon Butte, I like Shamir DK. Both of them are kind of like the wide receiver twos in their respective offenses. But like I feel like I would kind of rather have Jerry Judy just a little bit. And I think that the same thing goes to me when it comes to Jalen Naylor, because he's going at like pick 170. It's come up just a little bit, like 3 or 4 picks in the ADP since we talked last week, because shortly after that stream where I did do a Raiders stack that included Fernando Mendoza, obviously the Raiders went ahead and they signed Kirk Cousins. So it's like, well, but I think that, that at least bakes in a little bit of floor maybe into that offense, where it's not going to be completely Mendoza thrown into the pool and you ride or die with him. Like, does that take some of the luster off of Mendoza as a pick? Sure. I'd be willing to entertain that. You're going to get fewer starts out of him than you were expecting, say, a week ago, but I still think he's a starter by season's end, everything like that. I don't really buy into the notion that Cousins is starting every single week next season for the Raiders. But all of that to say is Jalen Naylor is a cheap wide receiver one who I think has some legitimate upside here. I mean, the Raiders gave him a decent chunk of change. I think there's like over $20 million guaranteed in that contract. You look at the other competition for targets when you get past Brock Bowers. You got Trey Tucker, Dante Thornton, Jack Besh. Naylor, like he hasn't been the alpha in an NFL offense yet. He's been playing behind Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, so on and so forth. So like he hasn't really had that opportunity, but he's been really efficient, really explosive with the opportunities that he's gotten, enough to the point where I feel like that there's a level up in his game to, maybe you could argue that the Raiders overpaid, but maybe, just maybe, the Raiders saw something and maybe ended up, giving themselves a contract when it comes to Naylor that's actually going to look better in time than maybe we would have thought, at first run there. So definitely going to keep my eye on Jalen Naylor. I think that the Raiders might draft somebody, but it's obviously not going to be with their first pick. So it would be like a day two type of selection. I don't think any of the receivers going on day two in this draft are better right now than Jalen Naylor is. Maybe that's crazy. But I feel like with the money, like the capital that they've invested in him, I don't see like him like sort of getting like bulldozed with competition that's going to like really kind of put a hurting on his target projections. So it's going to be a matter of like sink or swim for Jalen Naylor in this role that we haven't seen him in at the NFL level. But I'm willing to take that chance at pick 171. Again, I don't mean to pick on Isaac Tesla, but like it just makes all the sense in the world to me to take Jalen Naylor instead of, the wide receiver three in this offense, even if underdog is, not a PPR format, and Tesla is obviously, kind of got that good big play, low target volume, but like high efficiency type of thing, some touchdown upside to his game, that type of thing. But I feel like I'm just I'd rather buy the role of the wide receiver one in Las Vegas for basically the same price that I'd be getting at wide receiver three. So that's kind of like the point that I'm trying to make in this article is like, if you just kind of visualize what the market is telling you with the ADP, I think you can do yourself some favors here with how things are going to shake out. And it's like, just ask yourself that question. Like, I'm getting role X on a certain team. and I'm surpassing the role Y on another team, is that the right play? Am I doing the right thing in that case? Some other like receivers twos that I'm kind of digging on that we'll talk about in the article. I like Josh Downs a decent bit. I feel like his ADP hasn't climbed up. He had basically like, very similar production to 2024, I want to say last year. And, Michael Pittman vacates 20% of the targets in that Indianapolis offense. Alec Pierce, like he has a lot of, he has the contract. Like he is the wide receiver one there in Indianapolis, but like his function, his role is not one that you can go to like 10, 12 times a game. Downs is that short A dot type of guy. And yes, Tyler Warren's going to kind of occupy a similar part of the field, similar part of like the route tree and everything. But I feel like Downs is going to have a lot of opportunities this year. And I feel like he could have a season not too dissimilar from like what we got out of Khalil Shakir 2 years ago. Shakir, interestingly, is going like almost 50 picks later than he went last year, even though his production was basically the same as 2024 as well. So he feels like he's getting punished for almost not having like that linear growth where it's like, well, he had the breakout in 2024. He obviously has to like double that production once again this year. Yeah, I'm not going to blame him too much for that. And ultimately, like DJ Moore is good. He's a wide receiver one there. Wide receiver two for Josh Allen, I feel like is a pretty decent thing to have on your team, especially at the 11th round acquisition cost. Like I feel like that's not too bad of a deal. Guys like Jaden Higgins and Jalen Coker, they're a little bit more like you're betting on a breakout. Coker, it's interesting. Like his only really big game last year was in the playoffs, so I feel like that's kind of influencing his draft price right now because otherwise, like he had, I think, one fewer catch than the year prior, and like otherwise, pretty much same numbers across the board. So I think a lot of people were sort of moved, I guess, by that big game against the Rams in the playoffs. And Higgins, I mean, if CJ Stroud's able to kind of like get back in gear somehow, I feel like the wide receiver two in that offense, I think, is going to be in really good shape to produce. So interested to see how he plays out. I definitely prefer like those three guys as opposed to, and so does the market, obviously, over someone like a Khalil Shakir. But Xavier Worthy, I'm a little bit worried about with it looking like Rashee Rice is going to be good to go. The Packers, I can just never figure them out. Quentin Johnston, I feel like that things are going to be funneled away from him a little bit. I do like Michael Pittman a decent bit though, where he's going as well. I feel like as long as it is ultimately Aaron Rodgers there in Pittsburgh, I feel like that's going to work out just fine for Michael Pittman. I'm going to go ahead and jump in a draft lobby here. What do you say? And we'll get this draft going here in a second while this fills. If you want to tap in, this is the Underdog big board. So it's like a $10 entry. If you want to jump in, there are six spots still available. So still some room if you want to join me in this draft and make me look foolish or just like snipe all my picks. However you're feeling, you are welcome to do that. Happy to have people draft alongside me. Now we're down to five spots remaining. Last week we got the first overall pick. We got Bijan Robinson. I think we've done that a couple times on the stream so far this spring. So hoping for a different draft slot, hoping to test out a different build this time around. But I'm not going to be mad about drawing the number one slot either. I'm trying to think what else were we talking about in this particular article. So I talked about those wide receiver twos. I don't want to dive too deeply into those wide receiver twos that are a little bit shaky. Tony Pollard, I'll get into him for just a second. Where the draft is getting ready to start here, but there's huge profit potential. I feel like with Tony Pollard in the sense that like if the Titans don't take Jeremiah Love, Pollard should be taken right around where Tyler Algier goes. So that would be like about almost 2 rounds worth of closing line value if you take Pollard now. Now, if they do take Jeremiah Love, which is very much in the realm of possibility, then that pick there's some risk there. So you would be theoretically getting him at top of his market value, and whereas like right after the draft, he's probably going 3-4 rounds after. It would be pretty rough flip for his overall value if they were to get Jeremiah Love. But if the needle gets threaded the right way, I think Pollard could end up actually being a pretty decent selection if you get him now here before the draft. That's one of the kind of like key things to take away from these streams is this is before the draft, so things are going to change a lot, and there's going to be some guys that we get exposure to that their value gets completely crushed a little bit, and there's going to be others who all of a sudden we are sitting way prettier than we thought we would be. I'm going to go ahead and share the tab as this draft gets underway. I am the 10th pick. You can see the draft board right there. Look at that. Beautiful. And we're off and running. We got Bijan going first. I promise you, I will not do just listing of picks for the rest of this stream. So just diving in here. All right, pretty boilerplate to start. I'm going to check my notes real quick. See if there are any stacks. I wrote about stacks a couple weeks ago that were able to be pulled off from the 10 spot. Looks like the Packers are one. Yeah, the Packers would be the main one that I was able to identify from that article. All right, I am almost up. I'm picking 10th overall. St. Brown just went right at that CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson nexus. See how this goes. Oh, James Cook goes. All right, I'm saying Lamb's on the menu. Going CeeDee Lamb to start my draft, and I'll be coming pretty much right back around. I'll be at pick 15, so I'll have some pretty decent choices. Marion Hampton was actually going to be my target with the 15th pick, so I'm a little bit bummed that Omarion Hampton went 11th, but we can persevere. There's one of the big takeaways right now is like you are well within your rights to grab a receiver in the first round because there are like 8 running backs right now that are going routinely in the second round. So I feel like that's something worth considering. I don't think I have nearly enough Ashton Genty just yet, so I'm going to go ahead and take the plunge there on Genty. And now we got a nice little bit of time here before I'm up next. I'm 18 picks away. Yeah, we're kind of to that point now where I got to like keep tabs on like who I've drafted. Yeah, so that's my first Genty share so far. So glad to have that in the bag. And I didn't have any Lamb either. So getting a little bit different with this build so far relative to what I've done so far during best ball season, during the early portion of it at least. Oh, is this thing on? There it goes. Okay. Thought the draft might have gotten hung up there for just a second. We're in good shape. We're up and running. There goes George Pickens, maybe a little bit earlier than he usually goes, but that's okay. I don't think I was going to endeavor to go with double Cowboys off the rip. still a decent amount of picks to go before I'm back up. Um, anyway, back to the main arguments at hand. So I was talking about Tony Pollard a little bit ago, and the way that if you get him now and Tennessee doesn't take Jeremiah Love, all of a sudden you're sitting in pretty good shape there. But maybe they were pretty intentional with what they did this offseason, not touching the running back position and going after Love with the fourth pick. I think that would kind of end up similar to what we saw, unfortunately, with Ashton Genty last year, where it's like that he's a top 10 talent, but that team is more than just a running back away. I would be not surprised. I don't know exactly what would happen to Love's ADP if he went fourth overall. I think a lot of people would get scared by the potential of the Ashton Genty type of outcome there. But I know that I would feel worse about taking Jeremiah Love if he ended up on the Titans. I'd much prefer him to, even Washington. I think would be more within their rights to go after someone like Genty. They can at least talk themselves into being, a running back away. I mean, they were just in the NFC Championship a couple of years ago, even if it was, just maybe a little bit fluky. All right. I'm one pick away. Now I am up. I think this isn't spicy, but I feel like Brees Hall at 34 is totally fine. That's like about a pick and a half later than he usually goes. So a slight bit of value there. Everyone I've gotten so far has gone a little bit past ADP. We're coming back around on the wheel. So thus far, I'm team 10 if you're just joining us. So I've got CeeDee Lamb, Ashton Genty, and Brees Hall so far. So 2 running backs and 1 receiver. Probably eyeing up a receiver up next. I've got my pick of T. Higgins, Devontae Smith. Looks like Zay Flowers just went. I was definitely considering old Zay. I'm going Devontae Smith. I want more Devontae Smith now on the chance that the Patriots, they've been in the news, if they end up trading for AJ Brown, how high do you think Devontae Smith is going? Like, I feel like he's at least like an early third round type of pick. I think that he's probably going, I don't know, probably where like Ted McMillan or Chris Olave, Rashee Rice, like that kind of tier. Like I think all of a sudden he's right there. And I know that everyone's a little bit sour on the Eagles right now, and it's particularly like the offense. People are worried about that passing game. I understand that. I echo that sentiment, frankly. But if Devontae Smith is the wide receiver 1 there, I think it's totally wheels up. I mean, certainly to the point where he's a top 25 fantasy player. I think that's hard to argue against. So I'd rather get him at 40. And I'm of the opinion that AJ Brown's gone. I just don't think that the Eagles are going to invite that level of drama throughout the course of the season. It seems like things are pretty like toxic on both sides between them. So I think AJ Brown will be moved after June 1st, or at least with that post June 1 designation. And therefore, Devontae Smith, I feel like it was the pick right there. Now, does that mean I want to stack him with Jalen Hurts? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. But it wouldn't be the worst thing. If I'm going to get Jalen Hurts, I might as well have him stacked, right? Trying to think if there's been any other interesting pick. TreVeyon Henderson goes a little bit earlier than he usually does right there. Oh no, he went right around ADP. Jalen Waddle we're used to seeing now in the end part of the 4th round. T. Higgins fell pretty far. Higgins fell to 4-6. So he went almost a full round post ADP. So that guy got a bargain. He does not have that's kind of the problem though. Like he doesn't have Jamar Chase, nor does he have, or would it make much sense for him to get Joe Burrow because he already has Josh Allen. That's a little bit interesting. All right, I'm 2 picks away from being back up here, and then I'm going to bloviate about this other part of my article here coming up here in a second. See what we got cooking here. Went with Tootin. He slipped a little bit there. I was a little bit surprised to see that, so I will go that route. Kind of setting myself up for a later quarterback, later tight end type of build. Although there's a huge tight end dead zone though. Like once you get past Loveland, I think there is some time that tends to pass before you get to Tyler Warren at his ADP just inside pick 70. All right, who's in my queue? Who's up here? I said could do Tyler Warren. I think instead I'm going to go Alec Pierce. Hope that doesn't burn me. I was a huge Alec Pierce guy the last couple of years, but that was an 18th round type of pick. Much different when you're spending your 6th rounder. But as my wide receiver 3, I think you could do worse than Pierce, especially in again like the half point PPR format. So now we got a bunch of picks up before we are back on the clock. Got to squeeze out a little bit of promo time here for you folks. So we here at RotoWire, beyond just all of our best ball content, we did just launch something called Smart Money, which is kind of a glimpse in real time of where the money's coming in on different markets. So we've got everything like, we've got, what's that, Bundesliga, we've got Serie A. Look at that. We've got late night NBA action and all the different markets, how much money's coming in on them, all that good stuff. So really, really useful tool. I use it here in Georgia for my prop interest. It's really kind of instructive that way to see which way the money is flowing and to go from there. And we got a nice little, green circle. I like color coding things. So really good stuff. We just launched that over at RotoWire. Go to rotowire.com/smart-money and you will be able to take a look at that, see if you like it, you can go ahead and get signed up. And if you aren't signed up at RotoWire just in general, you can do that and get 15% off when you use the promo code YouTube15. So just go to rotowire.com, use the code YouTube15, bada bing, bada boom. Back to the draft. Thanks for bearing with me. Well, I did a little advertising. All right, so we are flying into the 7th round here. I do not have a stacking partner just yet. I still don't have my quarterback or my tight end. It's going to be a bit of a close call if Dak Prescott can fall to me. I don't think it's going to happen, but crazier things have happened in this draft. The guys in front of me already have their quarterbacks, so you're telling me maybe there's a chance here? Ramondre goes off the board. Okay, this might work out. I hope I'm not getting sniped here. Holding my breath. We got 7 seconds left for this pick to come in. I hope he's not auto-picking because then Dak Prescott would be the pick. Hope he had a cue set. No, it was Jacoby Myers. Ta-da. All right, well, no sweat there. Just get Dak Prescott a little bit past ADP and get my pairing with CD Lamb. Gotta love that. Um, let's see. Jalen Hurts is already off the board as of earlier that round anyway, so that's all well and good. Now, unfortunately, my tight end selection is a little bit wonky right now. I'm not sure where I'm at with Tucker Kraft for this particular build. Do I double tap my quarterback here and just get that over with? Yeah, little NFC beast quarterback pairing could be worse. Could be worse. And then Dart and Prescott, Dart and Dak. So get that rushing upside from Dart, hopefully, and then if Dak stays healthy all year, we know that he's pretty bankable. But I've got two fairly injury prone quarterbacks, so I will probably have to draft a third one in this one. But I've been doing the three quarterback drafts just because these are still 20 rounders, and we don't know what the bye week situation is just yet. Scroll down just a little bit, and again, if you're just joining me here, I am team number 10 for everyone's edification. All right, so I've got two quarterbacks, three receivers, and three running backs. Probably want to get some more receivers here in this next little quadrant. One of the other things that I'm writing about, I was talking about Tony Pollard earlier, probably too much. But the other like kind of really cheap running back one right now is the Seattle one. Here, I'll pull that chart back up for y'all. Yeah, as you can see here, Seattle has the latest RB1 right now of any team. Any team, all 32. Seattle is being considered the least among the backfields. I think the market is basically telling us that we don't know who the running back is, and I think that the waters might get even muddier potentially, but a little bit like the Vikings. I think I was talking about that last week, where they have two sort of like not super exciting running backs right now in Jordan Mason and in Aaron Jones, and it's like, oh, it feels like they're primed to get a third running back in the mix via the draft. I feel like the Seahawks kind of have that bent to them as well. I think they like George Holani a little bit, but Charbonnet, a guy that's coming off of the ACL that happened in January. Who knows when he's going to be back? First of all, I'm sure there's going to be reports saying he's looking good for week 1, but come on, I'll believe it when I see it. And I think that there's some risk there. Now with best ball, there's the case for Charbonnet in the sense that you don't really need him in September, especially if he's like your running back 5, like whatever, who cares if he misses September as long as you're strong with your other 4. And then, the potential of Charbonnet sort of being rocket fuel come December, come playoff time, like that's alluring. Like that's something that I'm definitely interested in, definitely like open to the idea of that being an outcome this year. And you don't have to pay that much for it. Like you're talking about a 13th round investment to get Charbonnet. And then they bring in Emmanuel Wilson, who I like a lot. I've actually drafted him on a ton of my teams. Oh, looks like I'm on the clock. Here I am just rambling. I'm going to go a little bit ahead of ADP maybe, but maybe set myself up for a little bit of an Indy. Who doesn't want an Indianapolis passing stack? Am I right? Took him a little bit ahead of where he normally goes, but I'm good with that, I think. Probably going to circle back around and get. Okay, no, we're still okay. We're alive here. I was worried I'd made a misstep. I don't think so. get Jalen Coker as well. So light on tight end right now. I think I can scramble and find my way into getting a decent one. Um, but my receivers now feel like they're in pretty decent shape. I've got CeeDee Lamb, Devontae Smith, Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, and Jalen Coker. I am buying the idea of Jalen Coker having a nice year this year, even if it makes me a little bit queasy with Bryce Young as a quarterback. But rounding it off when it comes to Emmanuel Wilson, he's on a 1-year deal for not that much. So like if he's not that great in camp, like there's a non-zero chance that he's not even on the team come week one. You know, I think it's like a $2 million deal. So Seattle very well could draft a running back. It would not shock me. Would they go local? Would they get Jonah Coleman to come in there? I'm a little bit worried about Jonah Coleman as a prospect, but that's besides the point. If Seattle takes him, you have to consider him. I think any running back that Seattle takes is one that you'd have to at least take some level of serious. I could see Mike Washington being a fit there in Seattle as well. I think Mario a running back to them in his 3-round mock that you should definitely go check out. It's up on the site. We've got a little bit more picks to go here, but yeah, Seattle is one of those backfields where it's like very unsettled right now, and like unlike the Pollard thing I was mentioning, where if Jeremiah Love's not the pick for the Titans at 4, Tony Pollard suddenly becomes someone that's probably getting drafted in the 8th round as opposed to like the 10th. And I think in Seattle's case, like say they do go like this whole draft or at least like 4 or 5 rounds without taking a running back, like how much is Charbonnet and Wilson really going to bump up? Like I'm really not sure. Like I think at least in like the short term, like maybe during the summer, depending on those reports about Charbonnet and depending on, how Wilson's doing, maybe that will shake things up just a little bit. But I don't think that there would be like an immediate post-draft fallout if Seattle doesn't go after a running back here to add to the mix of Charbonnet, Wilson, and then of course George Holani, who's kind of currently like getting drafted as like an end game type of target. All right, we're roaring back to me on the clock here. Up in a couple of picks here, so let me get myself in order. Just had Jake Ferguson go off the board. That stings a little bit. That would have been nice to have that and attached to my Dallas pairing. It's no longer a stack potentially. Ouchies. Guess I'm going old Sam Darnold. Ugh. Not a great run out for your boy there. That's all right. All right, I'm back up. Let me go a little Sadiq the Freak. It's my tight end 1. So definitely going to have to backfill and grab a couple more tight ends here in the not too distant future. At least one more solid starter, I think, before I could, feel decent about speccing on a tight end, maybe in the end game. But yeah, that's kind of the situation here that I've the corner I've painted myself into, unfortunately. So I like this team. We've still got a long ways to go. I've got almost half the draft to pull this out of the fire, but this isn't what my usual build, I'd say, looks like. But we're going to work it out. We're going to work it out. I will pull the board back up, stop keeping you in the dark and showing you guys my weird little chart. All right, back in business here. right, so I have 3 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, 5 receivers, and 1 tight end. So funky build here, but at least I don't have to worry about quarterback the rest of the way. I could get Shaheed, but I'm a little bit far out for that to happen. Or am I? No, that could happen. All right, I definitely am going to need to make some hay on running back, though. You don't want to be playing the late running back game too often. I wrote about that earlier this offseason as well, where you're talking about running backs taken after usually like the 14th round. The amount of times that they are giving you usable weeks is pretty slim. So obviously, I'm pretty bolstered. Like if my first 3 running backs are good, should be in good shape here, but we're riding a thin margin as it stands. So we're going to have to get a little bit creative and make sure that we can get a running back that we can at least talk ourselves into liking as a just a little something to help get us by. Sorry for the dead air there, folks. All right, we're coming right back around. Oof. 1 pick left. Let's see. All right. Grab Mark Andrews and then grab hopefully a decent running back will fall back to me. I think there's a couple usable ones that are coming back around. But we're definitely walking a tightrope here. No question about it. Let's see. So I did draft Josh Downs. I talked about him a little bit in the article. Oh, are we back up? We are back up. I'll cap that point here in a second. If you've followed me for any amount of time, you know I'm a Keaton Mitchell guy, so had to do that. Hopefully, he can fully healthy Keaton Mitchell can, fully maximize his potential, which I think is pretty enormous. So love to see that, even if it's not on the Ravens. But going back to the Josh Downs point, so again, talked about him as like a wide receiver 2 target that I like. So basically, when you look at the context of the Indianapolis offense, 20% of the target share is gone in the form of Michael Pittman from last year. And I feel like Downs' role is pretty well defined. Like he's the primary slot wide receiver. Not to say that Tyler Warren doesn't, have his fair share of instances where he's lining up in the slot as well. So, I mean, there's a little bit of competition that way. And, you have like the overall concern of what does Daniel Jones look like coming off of the Achilles injury? We've seen that not look great for other quarterbacks lately, but, they were both a decent bit older. I'm, of course, talking about like Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers. Daniel Jones a good bit younger than those guys when they suffered their injuries. So, like, what if? What if Daniel Jones is okay? I feel like he's not going to run as much this year, but I feel like things look pretty good as far as Downs is concerned. So I was happy to grab him. So ideally, you could probably look back at this draft board and say that I missed on getting Daniel Jones to take with Alec Pierce and Josh Downs. I wouldn't completely disagree with you, but where the board was right there, I felt uneasy about Jones making it back to me, and Jones would have been a reach at that juncture. So I just kind of took best player available, I guess you could say, or best quarterback available. After all, Sam Darnold still gets to throw to Jackson Smith and Jigba. Should be fine. But now we are into the 15th round. So clicking humming along. We've got 3 quarterbacks, 4 running backs, 5 receivers, and 2 tight ends so far. So that kind of leaves me in a direction where I can go in a lot of different directions for my next pick. Jerry Judy just went at pick 166. So where does that compare? So that's about 7 picks after his usual ADP. So now we're getting into that part of the draft that I was talking about earlier. Is our guy Jalen Naylor available? Ah, he just got taken. Where did he go? He just went right before Jerry Judy. So maybe someone was listening on this stream before we got started. Pacheco just went. Just definitely looking in his direction as a life raft. All right, I'm back up. Investing in the Jets offense. This should be good. I got AD Mitchell with my next pick, and then we'll probably circle back here with a running back coming around the other side of the wheel here. But right now, wide receiver 2 there. They've got Geno Smith. If Geno has anything left, could be worse. I think AD Mitchell, I think Indianapolis was probably having some seller's remorse on getting rid of him, at least right now. But they're pretty loaded, I suppose, at receiver anyway. Let's see. All right, I don't love it, but Brian Robinson, just something to. Atlanta used it. They're going to have a new coaching staff and everything, and I think that there's not going to be as much work available as like Tyler Algier had available to him. But I still feel like Brian Robinson, like he's going to have to get some work just because. Bijan can only do so much. He's going to do a ton, of course. Like I think he's number 1 ADP for a reason, but there's still going to be some stuff available there, and for Brian Robinson. I would think. All right, so we are about halfway through the 16th round. Seen a couple tight ends come off the board here in the 15th and 16th. Nothing too surprising though about this draft so far. Nothing that's really changed. Like Fernando Mendoza, where he went at pick 165. I feel like that's a bit of a drop from where he was probably a week ago, I would think. But obviously, Kirk Cousins, I don't think has gone yet either. I'm a little surprised to see Geno Smith go that early, but okay. We still have a decent bit until we're back on the clock. Let's see. Mendoza, about 10 picks past his ADP. He was still have a little bit of work to do on my tight end room, but I'm going to worry about that probably a little bit later. Oh, there goes Cousins and Michael Penix. This guy's quarterback strategy is awesome. Tyler Shuck, Michael Penix, Kirk Cousins. So I think you get 17 starts out of Tyler Shuck. Maybe you combine for 12 starts from these two, from Penix and Cousins. So we'll see. I'm going to need Shuck to kind of be the man. I think for that build to work out. But it's all right. You got to like tell yourself a little story when you come through these drafts, and as the board formulates the way that it does. All right, we're up in one more. Here we go. If you've followed me on these streams before, probably not surprised. Grabbed another Ryan Flanoy. I don't care. I'm gonna keep keep doing it where he's going. Totally fine with it. Anytime it's after pick 200. I'm in. I need no convincing. Terrence Ferguson is not someone that I've drafted much of, if at all, yet, but I do need a tight end as we get close to landing the plane here. I might just be done with running backs. Ugh, I don't like anything that's left, I don't think. Maybe Jalen Wright. A little hedge to my Ollie Gordon exposure. All right, I'm back up. What do we got? All right, so he's got some competition for targets, but wanted to grab Terrence Ferguson there. I like the potential upside. Reasonably high draft pick last year, really good athlete coming out of Oregon, good producer his last year at Oregon. You definitely just want to be a part of that offense. I think this is probably the last go for the Stafford Rams, but as long as he's still there, you got to believe in that passing game. So, him versus Parkinson can always be tricky, but I feel like Ferguson, there, I don't need to rely on him. I just need to get like 3 weeks where he's like kind of useful, and that should be enough. So taking him in the 18th round, I'm good with that. So really, most of my picks have come after ADP, other than Downs and Coker. Pretty much everyone else has been almost a half a round worth of value. So at least I have that going for me. I'm the value king right now. But let's see here. So I've got 7 receivers and 5 running backs. So that puts me in a pretty good spot here where I can go with probably one each the rest of the way, one receiver and one running back, because I've kind of hit my quota with quarterbacks and with tight ends as well. And again, if you're just tapping in with me, team number 10 here. So the back half of my draft from round 12 onward: Kenyon Sadiq, Mark Andrews, Keaton Mitchell, A.D. Mitchell, Brian Robinson, Ryan Flournoy, Terrence Ferguson. Here as we get to the end game. If you've enjoyed this stream, if you've tapped in with me and you're watching on the RotoWire YouTube, give me a follow over at Johns_tailgate on Twitter. Or if you're watching on Twitter, be sure to like and subscribe to the RotoWire YouTube channel, the fantasy football channel in particular. That's where I'm running this particular stream from. Always love that. Always helps the channel, helps the brand to get more likes and subscribers on there. So if you're watching on Twitter, give us a like and a subscribe on the YouTube as well. Really appreciate it. It's cool to have everybody in here again. Try to do these every single Wednesday night, usually around this time, usually around 8:30 Wednesday nights. It's a school night on the East Coast, so still going with a little, you're done with dinner, you're good to go. It's time to draft. Let's go ahead and knock one out. This has been a really fun one as far as our streams are concerned. We've done a lot of these big boards so far this draft season. This will probably be the last big board, but we'll be back next week doing just a different contest. All right, receiver time. You get my guy Zach Branch, fellow Georgia Bulldog. So he's my 8th receiver. You get one more running back. I think I know who I'm going to get to, and it'll be right around ADP. I'm eyeballing Jaden Blue. He's someone that, people were comfortable taking in like the 11th round last year. Now I'm getting him basically in the 20th round. Helps out with my Cowboys exposure. I'm not sure if Javonte Williams carries the load the same exact way. I'm hoping that Jaden Blue kind of is more involved in that Cowboys offense this year, obviously, than he was a year ago. If that ends up being the case, I do feel like he adds a speed element to that offense that's pretty interesting. If this is my 20th round pick. Like, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But I kind of need to take a chance and have a bit of a prayer pick here with my running back, because I only have 6. Usually I try to be pretty much done shopping for running backs by the time the 14th or 15th round rolls around. But yeah, therein lies my draft. So to recap it from the top, what do we got? CeeDee Lamb, Ashton Genty, Breece Hall. Pull it up so I'm not just like looking away from the camera. Breece Hall, Devontae Smith, Bashal Tutin, Alec Pierce, Dak Prescott, Jackson Dart, Josh Downs, Jalen Coker, Sam Darnold, Kenyon Sadiq, Mark Andrews, Keaton Mitchell, A.D. Mitchell, not related, I don't think, Brian Robinson, Ryan Flanoy, Terrence Ferguson, Zach Branch, and Jaden Blue. So a different looking roster than what I'm usually, ending up with in these drafts, but good to diversify. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, especially not at this time of the year. A bit of a volume drafter anyway, so just want to kind of get shares of most of the player pool here where I can. So this was a fun way to do a bit of a different build than where my sort of like reflexes tend to lead me. But otherwise, that's going to do it for me here. The article that I was gassing up earlier on in the stream, that should be up on the site probably no later than tomorrow. I don't think. Yeah, should be good to go by tomorrow afternoon. We'll also be on the RotoWire Fantasy Football podcast with Mario Puig. We live stream for that around 11 a.m. Eastern time. So while you're on your lunch break, you can check us out, or out for your morning walk. However you want to do it, we'll be live streaming it. That'll be on the RotoWire Twitter and the YouTube pages. And then, of course, we'll have that out in podcast form later on in the day. So those are my plugs for the remainder of the week. And again, we'll be back next Wednesday with another best ball stream, breaking it down, doing another live draft here in person. Always fun to do. Getting ready for the NFL draft, of course, which is 2 weeks from tomorrow night. So we are really getting close. The window is almost over for this particular period of best ball season, where you're post combine but pre-draft. Things are going to change a lot in about 2 weeks' time. So pretty exciting time, but also a really good time to be drafting. So that's going to do it for me here. Again, if you're not signed up at RotoWire, you can get 15% off if you use the code YouTube15 when you go to rotowire.com. Check out our new smart money tool. Really good stuff over there. All right. That's it for me. Have a great Wednesday, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.